Archaeologist Randy White is far beneath the hills of France, searching for a special moment in evolution. An era cloaked in mystery, when with hardly a change in appearance, humans began behaving in ways they had never behaved before. He wants to find out how it was that our ancestors became truly human.
It's downright scary to be in these cave environments. They are cold, dark, damp, frightening, dangerous places. When you see people going a kilometer underground or 2 kilometers underground and you find traces of paintings and that sort of thing, there's something much more profound going on than just an interest in exploration. Perhaps this cave that we're exploring here opens onto our site, which could make, if there were any paintings in this cave, could make them the oldest cave paintings on the planet.
It's possible Randy White could one day make a discovery as startling as that made in 1994, when others found underground caverns adorned with over 300 images, some painted 34,000 years ago. The oldest rock art known. But finding art is not the only goal. White wants to find something bigger, how the human mind was born. Where once people had looked at bare walls and had seen only walls, now others suddenly saw astounding possibilities. And with art came human technology, human communication, human culture. The question is, what happened to make all this possible? How could it be that a species opened its mind and burst into a new realm? How was it that human ancestors evolved a whole new way of seeing themselves, and in time transformed the planet? The Great Rift Valley of East Africa. Here is where the human story began. For millions of years, Africa was the landscape of human evolution. Across this terrain, an ancestral people survived, reproduced, and passed on their traits from generation to generation. Without Africa, humanity as we know it might never have evolved. This is an area that was once inhabited by hominids before they were truly human. Now it's a site scientists visit to understand how people lived and what they thought about over 1 million years ago. Soon after the rains each year, Rick Potts leads a team that scours these badlands, finding stone tools and fossils. Potts believes this place was once a tool-making factory.
It takes really sharp eyes to find that first fragment of fossil, or to find that sliver of stone tool that says hominids were right here at this spot. And so I knew that we were very close to an ancient soil that was nearly 1 million years old that had previously produced lots of fossil bones and stone tools. Okay. It turned out to be a hand axe, one of those stone tools that our ancestors made for a long, long time, hundreds of thousands of years. These hominids were bringing these rocks down from the highlands, and they were chipping the edges of the tool around, and they could even hold it in their hand like this, use it for digging, or for knocking off flakes that they could use for butchering animals. In a sense, this is the Swiss Army knife of the Paleolithic.
Here, these Paleolithic or ancient stone tool people made a variety of simple implements repeatedly for nearly 1 million years.
Indeed, their minds were oriented towards survival. They had the ability to make these tools, which had some sophistication to them, but the fact that they kept making them means that they had a kind of a mental template, a regularity of thinking that kept producing these same things over and over again. Chances are they didn't speak to one another like we do, and apparently they got along just fine with this single tool. So 1.5 million years this was around, which is an immense period of time, an absurd period of time. When you think of today, where computer programs don't last for longer than a couple of years before they're improved, before they diversify in some way, and our technology is the same way. It's not the way of the technology of these ancient people 1 million years ago. They didn't have something that we have. The creativity, the innovation, the diversity of cultures that, of course, characterizes our own species.
On the Tree of Life, human evolution began around 6 million years ago, when hominids split off from the common ancestor they shared with chimpanzees. They descended from the trees about 4 million years ago and entered a new world. 2.5 million years ago, with a modified hand, they fashioned stone tools and began to depend more and more on a diet of meat. The size of their brains increased dramatically. And about 2 million years ago, some began leaving Africa. These early travelers were successful for a while, but in the end, they all became extinct. It wasn't until about 60,000 years ago that the first truly modern humans, our ancestors, began leaving Africa. They were hunter-gatherers, foraging for food, living in small groups, roaming a wide landscape. But they were different from their predecessors. They had begun a revolutionary way of life. This lifestyle had emerged over millions of years through the multiple processes of evolution: mutation, selection, adaptation, competition, failure, punctuated by the occasional success. It was a story of evolution, of change over time, no different from the stories of so many other species. But in the end, it produced results new to the planet.
Behavior changed very radically at around 50,000 years ago. This is someone who lived in Israel, let's say roughly 100,000 years ago, this skull. Now you might say, Israel, is that Africa? At the time, in a sense, it was. If you look at where Israel is today, Israel is on the very margin of Africa, and there have been times in the past when Africa expanded a bit ecologically and Israel was effectively incorporated in Africa. This is someone who looks very much like us. And I think if this person were alive today, if we put the flesh back on and dressed this person properly, we wouldn't see any significant difference. It would not be somebody who would cause you to cross the street if you saw this person coming at you from the other direction.
And yet, this 100,000-year-old human did not behave like us.
And then here, we have a fully modern person, someone who lived in Africa within the last 40,000 years. Basically the same kind of skull, particularly the same kind of brain, or same shape to the part of the skull that contains the brain. But this is someone who behaved in a very different way than the prior person. This is someone who made a wider range of recognizable stone artifacts, made a lot of artifacts out of bone and ivory and shell, produced art. People like this would be recognizable not only in terms of their appearance, but in terms of their behavior as fully modern humans.
In a sense, we're all Africans. If you took a bunch of human babies from anywhere around the world, from Australia, New Guinea, Africa, Europe, and scrambled the babies at birth and brought them up in any society, they'd all be able to learn the same languages, learn how to count, learn how to use computers, learn how to make and use tools. And it suggests that the distinctively human parts of our intelligence were in place before our ancestors split off into the different continents.
After leaving Africa some 60,000 years ago, this fully modern